What's up everyone, this is Eflex and welcome back to another breakdown review video. So for this video we're going to be talking about the song Disco Dancer by Matduke, and I apologize if the audio isn't super high quality for when I pause and play the songs. This is kind of like a test run of the videos and of this concept, so if like you guys do like this and you're able to kind of hear the certain aspects of the song, then I will try and look a little more into the audio. But for now I just want to try this and kind of, give it my best shot, and hopefully you guys hear to the best of your ability and can kind of understand certain sounds from the quality that you hear in the video. But again, all these videos are on YouTube, so you could always go search up the song on YouTube and basically listen to it yourself. But I know the quality of the songs through a screen recorder, should be better, but for now I'm just gonna live with how it is and kind of see from there. And if this concept is something you guys like, then I will try and increase the quality over time. But for now, this is just kind of like a test run and seeing how this goes. So basically today we're going to be breaking down Matduke's song Disco Dancer. As I said earlier, this is an electro song. So this song was released back in 2012. I started listening to Monstercat in 2012, about a month later from when the song came out. The first song I ever listened to was called Mysterious Stranger by Tata Child, and that was his very first release, and it was just one of those awesome songs that I first heard. Shortly before that though, my friend was showing me, when I was back in high school, he told me about Monstercat, and it was a little bit strange because he was a metalhead, and he all of a sudden told me like, hey, I like this electronic music. And at the time I wasn't truly into metal, but I was into like rock music and hard rock. And I mean, I went to him and asked him for suggestions for songs, and all of a sudden he was telling me he was listening to electro, and I was just kind of like, what? So he told me to look up Monstercat, and I think electro songs were the first things I heard. So Disco Dancer is one of them. Game Changer by Day One, Pump It by Resonate, and Birthday Cake by Stephen Walking and Cold Blood and Ice Cream Cones. I think that's the other song I listened to. There are a couple dubstep ones as well, but this was one of the first electro songs I listened to. So Disco Dancer for me kind of has a special place in my heart, along with those other electro songs that I listened to in the very beginning. But Disco Dancer is quite an interesting song because I think there actually is a Vengeance sample, as you'll hear in the beginning of the song. But we'll kind of get into the breakdown now of this song. So you notice it's kind of, in the music world, it's called filtering, where basically you have a high pass and a low pass filter. High pass filter kind of takes out the low end and leaves the highs, and a low pass filter just keeps the lows and increases into the highs. I think I'm not a full expert on that, but I just know there is a filter being used to like automate maybe the sound, and because you notice how the sound kind of starts from almost not hearing anything and then you slowly hear the rise. It could also be an automation on the volume tab, but it sounds kind of like a low pass filter being used, because then the low ends are starting to come back in and you kind of hear some high end the kind of sound like that. I think that's a Vengeance sample. I think I have that Vengeance pack, and that might be a sample from that pack. But again, the song was made in 2012, so that's not uncommon. Some really cool wubs, and then you have kind of a open cymbal kind of playing on it. Sounds like every beat. And you have some wubs I would imagine were made in, massive, but also could be from a pack too. It's not uncommon, but overall, really cool intro. So for an electro house song, it's a 15-second intro, so it's about maybe 9 bars at 128 in Ableton, about 9-bar intro, which is about 15 seconds. I think that's the relative conversion. I kind of like that. It kind of breaks. It sounds like almost like a reverse cymbal and cymbal. That's something I did back in the day when I was making music, starting off with Paperwolf. Like he suggested I use a cymbal and then reverse the same cymbal sound and kind of push them together. So it's like like a cymbal rises up and then a reverse cymbal goes down. Or vice versa. And basically it kind of creates this effect where it kind of rises, crashes, and then goes down. So it almost sounds similar to that, and this kind of break and then rise back up into this part. That sounds like a downlifter, like a cool effect downlifter, and then you kind of hear the kind of the sub and the bass line kind of coming in, slowly being introduced, volume and maybe filtering wise. Has a da-da-da-da-da. That's a cool sound. I don't know if it's a pad synth. It sounds to me kind of like a synth, but again, it could be pad, kind of arpeggiated pad. That sound, I think that's from a Vengeance pack. Don't quote me on that. I thought I saw it, but in the case it was, then Matduke probably used that pack and then just kind of cut out and vocal chopped certain aspects of that loop or sample and just inserted in the song, which is a really nice touch. I really do like that sound. Again, that sounds kind of like a cymbal as you hear that, and then it just kind of hits the cymbal and then it just goes down, and then you don't hear anything, and now it builds back up again. Another cymbal kind of halfway in between the drop. I personally like to do that with my sound effects. I have one at the beginning of the drop, and then I have kind of like a sound effect in the middle of the drop if it's like maybe a bar, maybe like a bar is too long. Like I have one in the beginning, one in the middle, and then one sound effect kind of at the drop. Just kind of creates kind of some tension and something you kind of hear to build up and transition. So I noticed that here, and I noticed that the volume this time is coming in a lot faster than in the beginning for most of the sounds before the drop. Disco Dancer. And you have that awesome sample of Disco Dancer. Don't know what sample that's from. Sounds like it could be pitched down and possibly put through a vocoder, or maybe that's what the sound already sounded like and just use some equalization or EQ and maybe cut off some of the low end and a little bit of the high end. But really cool sample. Makes the song what it is. It's called Disco Dancer because that sample. So let's hear the drop. So it has a really cool lead. I like the bass sound. I like the lead playing at the same time. A little of the wubs, but yeah, I like the bass sound. I like the lead. Could be made in massive. Wouldn't be too common. if they're using third-party plugins, if they're using, I don't know, they could be using an in-house synth, but you could tell just with the bass line and the lead that there's a nice space differential with the high and the low end, but you kind of can hear both. They're pretty leveled pretty well. The lead's not overpowering and the low end bass sound isn't overpowering either, so both of those sounds are pretty good from what I hear. And you have the percussion kind of going along. So after the disco dancer transition, you notice like the samples, you hear that kind of beginning sample, the kind of come back. The I guess sample you hear at the end of kind of the phrase of the drop, like sounds kind of like that. I know that was in the beginning of the drop too, but there's just like a lot more samples going on in this part of the section of the drop, and this song balances it pretty well, because I mean there's a sample going on in the background, and then there's a sample that happens every, I don't know, every measure per se, at the end of the measure, yeah. And then there's, you know, the lead and the bass line and the percussion is still going on, so there's quite a few things added into this song right now. It's kind of a nice transition, you know, kind of takes out that high end when it goes disco disco, and it's kind of a more basic kind of switch up. I mean, this is right before the switch up part of the song, but it just kind of changes kind of from a lot of things going on, and then just kind of takes a couple things out, but still keeps the flow and rhythm. Disco dancer. Disco dancer. Alright, so those sounds sound a lot like a massive sound. And, you know, it's the 2012 time, so those sounds kind of are a little dated, but I mean, those sounds are really good. Kind of give it a little bit different tone, kind of into the kind of switch up almost like, and kind of gives it that complextro kind of drop. If you don't know what complextro is kind of like what I think is considered a subgenre of electro house, if you could even subgenre it, where there's like a lot more wubs and noises in the song than just like a lead and a bass line, which is like house, but it's a little bit different. There's like a little, like even more noises. Like there's some noises, I guess, in electro house, and then there's even more noises in complextro. It's probably the best way for me to put it, but this is kind of like the complextro breakdown with more of the wubs and sound design stuff. So this is pretty cool. So you notice there's a kick and kind of hi-hat, like toots, 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 kind of a consistent one going on. You hear the wubs going, and then you hear kind of that high-pitched sound again, kind of creating that high-pitched tension before the drop, and then right as the drop kind of hits, there's like a wub wub, and then there's like a kick right at the very end. That's interesting because in the last song that we looked at, which is the Vice Tone song, the remix for Longest Road, there wasn't like a kick at the end of the drops, but in this song, like when it ends, there's like kind of a definitive kick before it goes into the breakdown. For me, I personally add that kick in most of my songs. It's just a personal choice. You don't have to. I like to use what I call like a sub drop. And like the drop kind of, the sub just goes zoom on the low end, and it just is a little more defined with the kick for me personally, but there's no real sub drop in this song, so it's just kind of a personal choice. So it's pretty interesting. You see on the old Spectrum analyzers for Monstercat, I think most of this section that you see on the Spectrum is low end to mid sounds, so you don't really see the high end sounds. So that's why you see like these two, I think, are just kind of like the sub and like the maybe like 200 to maybe 400 frequency hertz range, I believe. I don't think it shows high end yet. I think that's kind of in the later audio spectrums. The beginning ones don't, but yeah, you notice like there's a lot more low end, and then like the high end comes in, and then you hear that sound kind of tying it all together. That sound is louder than all the other high end sounds. It's kind of the bridge sound, I guess, too, before all the, I guess, more high end sounds kind of come back in, and they kind of balance a little bit more with each other. Yeah, so that sound was basically used as kind of like the high-end sound as the other sounds were coming up again and rising and just, you know, getting louder, so you could hear, and then they kind of build the tension rising back up, and then you have that kick, and then it's gonna get kind of quiet and build back up again and then drop.
Disco dancer.
So actually, I forgot personally, this is a very different drop than the first drop. Like this one, actually, it kind of rose and then it kind of went down, gave it like some silence, so that kind of created some tension. There's kind of like some space to breathe, and then use the sample Disco Dancer after like a measure or two, and then it kind of just comes back in, which is actually a really cool drop. If you know how to arrange that correctly, it could be effective like this song, where, you know, it gives enough space so you're kind of like, oh, when is the drop gonna hit? And then when you hear that and then it hits, and then you can kind of go crazy. And yeah, so it's kind of like a nice breath of fresh air in terms of, you know, the last two songs we saw, like Cold Blood and Ice Cream Cones, like there was not really like, there was like a gap transition, and it wasn't like as long as this one. And then in the Longest Road remix, like it's kind of builds up, and there's like a tom that goes dunk and it hits and transitions, whereas this transition, like there's like a lot more kind of dead space, I almost want to say. Like you don't hear anything, and then all of a sudden like the sound comes back and drops. So it's pretty cool. Like all three songs have different drops. I do have to say, I really love the transitions with the samples, and like how the lead plays too. I do like the lead in this song as well as the bass line, but I do like the transitions of like the samples used in the song. Like they're really placed well, they're really kind of smart, and they're really clean. So like they don't kind of ruin the mix. They're all like in key and tune. Like it just kind of flows really well, and without the samples, like the transitions just wouldn't be as well. So it's pretty nice. Actually, this part is really cool, the outro. It's a little bit different, you notice like in the whole song, like there are a lot of like when after the drop, like it kind of just stops and like builds up again. This is kind of like the more continuous, more I want to say stereotypical kind of outro to an electro song. So where you have kind of like a 15 or 30-second outro of kind of the kick and the sounds. Um, the transition was good. I mean, it's pretty good for, transitioning to an outro with like the kick and the sound. Has some good elements, keeps the bass in, kind of keeps a couple sounds in, and then we'll just kind of outro from there.
Disco Dancer.
Yeah, so a pretty quick transition. I mean, it filtered a little bit, but I thought it was going to filter or like automate the volume down a little bit more to where I guess the sounds of the synths were even quieter, but it's each their own. This is Matduke's song, Disco Dancer. I mean, personally, I like Matduke on Monstercat. He, again, is one of the first artists I listened to, so I mean, I liked his song Shivers. I didn't discover Shivers actually until a lot later. Bloodlip is definitely a favorite of mine. To some people, it could be kind of a boring house song, but I do like Bloodlip. But I would say Matduke's best song is probably this song, Disco Dancer, on Monstercat. I don't know, he was doing a lot of hard dance, but I just think this Disco Dancer was pretty special for an electro song, and I think it's one of the few he's ever done. Just a fun fact, I actually got to talk to Matduke back in the day when I started on SoundCloud. It was kind of like one of those, oh my god, I talked to a celebrity moment, and then he actually followed me on SoundCloud a long time ago. So I mean, that was kind of one of those awesome moments that you have being a little starstruck in life, because I was such a big fan of Disco Dancer, and the guy that created Disco Dancer, like I got to talk to him, and he followed me on SoundCloud like back then. I was like, oh my god, in like 2012 and 13, I was like, oh my god, like this guy was known on the internet and kind of popular and known, he's following me, like what? And it's just kind of crazy. So yeah, that was just a fun memory, of back in the day when I first started producing and just listening to Matduke's songs. So overall, this is Disco Dancer. Definitely a top song of mine on Monstercat. Production wise is a very interesting structure. I mean, it kind of volume rises a lot and then it dips off, and then that break for a long time, I forgot there was a break that long, and then the outro kind of is a more stereotypical fast outro. So kind of the filtering or the automation in the song is a little bit more unique than some of the other songs I've heard, and the use of samples in the song is there are a lot more samples than you kind of hear in some of the songs today. They're more masked than when they use the samples today, like they vocal chop it, but they pitch it to the song and they might use it as a lead, where this song, like, it's apparent like samples. But I mean, I like the samples. I like the structure of the song. This to me is one of the nostalgic electro songs for me. So I mean, if I want to go back and listen to the song for nostalgia's sake, or just to get some inspiration on how to make 2012 era electro, definitely will do that when listening to this song. So again, like my past two videos, I hope you guys like this video. If you guys want to see more or have any advice or feedback on how these videos are, please leave a comment, leave a like as well. That always helps. Subscribe if you like the content and you want to see more. Hit the bell button if you want to be notified, if that still does notify you now. And again, sorry about the audio playback in the video, but if for any of you guys that want to kind of go back and listen to this song, You can listen to the song on YouTube. You can just type it in like how I'm doing here. Like you can just type in Matduke Disco Dancer and you'll find it here. And overall, that's pretty much it for the video. So I hope you guys enjoyed and have a good one, guys. Peace.